Your mortgage is the cheapest money you will ever borrow. And almost every homeowner in America is wasting it because the equity sitting inside your home earns you nothing. Your house appreciates the same when you own 20% of it or 80% of it. And every dollar that's parked in there is a dollar that could be generating income somewhere else. And after closing over 400 loans for everyone from first-time home buyers to investors building multi-million-dollar portfolios, I've watched this one mistake cost homeowners more wealth than bad rates and bad markets combined. So today, I'm showing you the exact refinancing loophole that turns debt equity into cash flowing rental properties so you can start collecting monthly rental checks without putting any new money down, even if you've never bought a rental before. Let's get into it. Now, the way investors access that equity is through a cash out refinance. You already own a property and you've built equity in it through your payments, appreciation, renovations. A lender looks at what the property is worth today and replaces your existing mortgage with a new, larger one. And the difference between your old loan balance and the new one goes directly to you as cash. So if you own a property worth, let's say $400,000 and you still owe $250, that's $150 in equity. Most lenders will let you borrow up to 80% of the property's value on a primary residence. So after subtracting what you still owe and closing costs, you're walking away with roughly 65 to 70 grand in cash. Your monthly payment goes up because the loan is bigger, but that cash is now in your hands to deploy. And the part that makes this fundamentally different from selling is that money is not income. You borrowed it, which means it's not taxable. You just pulled 70 grand out of your own wealth of your own property without triggering a single dollar in capital gains tax. If you sold the property to access that same equity, you'd owe taxes on every dollar of appreciation. Refinancing lets you hold on to the property, keep collecting rent if it's a rental, ride the appreciation, and still walk away with cash in hands. Now, pulling out cash of a property means nothing if it doesn't go somewhere that out-earns the cost of borrowing it. And what you do with the cash next is the difference between building a portfolio and paying interest on money that's sitting in a savings account, earning nothing. Because if you're paying around 7% on the new mortgage and that cash is sitting in a savings account earning 4%, you're losing money every month. It stays right there. The play is to take that capital and deploy it into an asset that earns more than the debt cost. And in real estate, that's very doable because of leverage. Say you take that 70 grand and use it as a down payment on a rental property. You finance the rest with a DSCR loan, which qualifies based on the potential rental income of the property instead of your personal income. The property rents for $2,400 a month. And after mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance, you're clearing around $300 a month in positive cash flow. But that's just the surface because your tenants are also paying down the loan every single month. The property is appreciating and you can depreciate the building on your taxes, which creates a paper loss that offsets the rental income and reduces what you owe. So the monthly cash flow is one piece, but the real wealth being built through principal paydown, appreciation, and tax savings is significantly more than what hits your account every month. And all of it started with equity that was sitting inside of your first property earning zip. Now that's what one deal looks like. But the real question is how you turn this into something repeatable, where you're not saving up for years every single time if you want to buy another property. And that's exactly what the BRRRR method is designed to do. But real quick, if you're sitting on equity right now and you want to know what your specific numbers look like, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can book a free consultation with my team. We'll pull your file, show you how much you can actually access, and map out which strategy makes the most sense for your properties and your income so you know exactly whether your equity should stay where it is or whether it's time to put it to work. Now, take two homeowners starting at the exact same position. Both of them own a home worth roughly $400,000 with $150,000 in equity. They have the same income and the same credit, but homeowner A does what most people do. They keep making their normal mortgage payment, throw a little extra at the principal whenever they can, and after 10 years, they've paid the loan down to about $200,000 with modest appreciation. The house is now worth roughly $530,000. That's $330,000 in equity. One property and no income from it beyond the roof over their head. That's a solid position. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but homeowner B takes a different path. In year one, they pull $70,000 through a cash out refi and buy a rental property. that rental property cash flows a few $100s a month and appreciates alongside the market. A few years later, the equity in the rental has grown enough to refinance it and fund the second renter. They keep going. And after 10 years, Homeowner B owns 3 or 4 properties. Combined portfolio value, even with a conservative appreciation, is well past $1 million. So total equity across all of these properties is pushing past $400,000 and climbing faster every single year because appreciation works on the full value of each property, not just the equity inside of it. And on top of that, 3 rental properties are generating monthly cash flow. The gap between these 2 homeowners had nothing to do with income, timing, or luck. It came down to one decision: whether the equity stayed parked or got put to work. But that comparison only shows half of the picture, because the investors who really accelerate this aren't just refinancing their primary home. They're running what investors call the BRRRR loop, BRRRR. These B stands for buy. Essentially, you find a property that's undervalued, something that's usually going to require a lot of work. A lot of investors use hard money or bridge loan financing to be able to close fast, which gives an edge on distressed deals because they can close 7 to 14 days. While everyone else is waiting on traditional financing, the first R is rehab. You renovate the property, and that renovation forces the value to go up, which gets us to the second R, rent. You place a tenant, stabilize the income, and now the property is performing. And the third R is refinance. Once it's rented, you do a cash out refinance at the new higher appraised value. That refinance pays off the short-term loan you used to buy it, and if you bought and renovated at the right numbers, it returns most or all of the cash you originally put in. So say you buy a property for $150,000, that needs $40,000 in work. After the rehab, the property appraises at $250,000 and rents for $1,800 a month. You do the cash out refinance at the new value, and that refinance covers nearly everything you put in. Now you own a $250,000 asset with a tenant, covering the mortgage and almost all of your original capital back in your hands, ready for the next one. And that's the final R, repeat. The capital never leaves the system. It just moves from one deal to the next deal while you keep every property behind it. So for example, I had an investor in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, looking to buy one Fourplex in cash. The property was listed at 1.275, but it had a catch. The property right next door to it was for sale for the same exact amount, for 1.275. Now this investor got recommended over to me because he was considering whether it was worth it to buy the other property or not. So what we did was we built an entire Excel showing this investor whether holding one property and getting the appreciation from this one and the cash flow would be better in the long term than buying both properties with a mortgage. We were able to explain and prepare this detailed calculation of how it was actually about $50,000 more a year just by buying both properties using a mortgage. The investor is now cash flowing, and 3 years after we did this deal for him, he is actually getting better results than what we predicted due to the interest rates coming down. The borrower is able to refinance and continue to buy if he decides. But for now, we decided that his best strategy was for the property to keep appreciating, to be able to refinance in the future and buy something much bigger. If you want access to this Excel that we created for this client, click on the link below so I can share this Excel with you. And because every refinance is a loan and not a sale, remember that there's no capital gains event at any point in the cycle. You hold the asset, the rent keeps coming in, appreciation continues to build, and your capital is free to go find the next deal. That's what makes this a permanent wealth building strategy instead of a one-time play. Every property you add creates more equity, which creates more deployable capital, which funds the next acquisition faster than the last one. Now, I'd be dishonest if I told you this works every single time with zero risk. The investors who get hurt with this strategy almost always make one of a few mistakes that are completely avoidable. The biggest one is over leveraging. Pulling every dollar of available equity out of a property all at once leaves you with no cushion. If a tenant leaves, a major repair comes up, or values dip even 10 or 15%, you can get squeezed fast. The smart play is to always keep reserves, at minimum 6 months of expenses across every property you own, and never stretch your leverage to the absolute max on anything at the same time at least. The second is refinancing without a plan for where the money goes. Every month that cash sits idle, While you're paying interest on it, you're losing money. Have the next deal identified or the strategy mapped out before you close the refi. And the third one that's specific to you right now, if you locked in a mortgage rate at 3% or lower back in 2020 or 2021, doing a cash out refinance today means replacing that rate with something closer to 7%. And over 30 years, that difference adds up to 6 figures in extra interest. In that situation, a home equity line of credit might be a smarter path. It lets you tap into your equity without touching your forced mortgage. The HELOC rate is higher, but it's temporary. You draw from it to fund the deal, refinance the investment property on its own once it's stabilized, pay the HELOC back down to zero, and your original low rate stays exactly where it is. That's a decision that depends entirely on your numbers. And it's exactly why working with someone who can see the full menu of options really matters. Now, the framework I just walked you through works the same for every investor, but which loan product gives you the best terms, whether a cash out refi or a HELOC, makes more sense for your current rate, how much equity you can actually pull, and what the right deployment looks like for your timeline and your risk tolerance is different for every file. And getting one piece of that wrong, even choosing the right strategy with the wrong loan product, can cost you tens of thousands over the life of the loan without you ever knowing it. So if you want us to pull your numbers, show you exactly how much deployable equity you're sitting on, and map out the specific plan that makes the most sense for your properties and your goals, I'll leave a link in the description. Go below, apply for your free consultation, and I'll see you there.